Welcome to the Penny Z Show, where you get to learn how real people overcame real issues. Get ready to take notes and, most importantly, take action.
Welcome. My name is Penny Zellenkoff. I'm the host of the show called Everything Empowering, and I have created a new series called the Less Than series. As I've discovered in myself and also with talking with many other people over the last several months, we all have what I'm calling the less than or I'm not enough story. And it's amazing how two little words, less than, or three little words, I'm not enough, make such an impact in our life. And I'm excited to have a guest on our show, and I am excited for all of you to hear her story. I've known Kathy for almost 2 years. We have met actually through a wonderful mentoring and coaching group called Life in Air that has helped both of us live our authentic life and to find our true purpose and calling in life. And so I'm honored to call her a friend and just excited to have her on the show. But before I have her share her backstory, I'd just like to give you a little bit of background on Kathy. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about Kathy and her background. So when Kathy speaks of her journey, she says that she realized that she had moments of happiness in her life, but the feelings never lasted. Most days of her life, particularly after her divorce, she felt like it was a sacrifice. She was very successful in her career in health insurance industry, having worked her way up to becoming the director of claims and configuration with a multi-million-dollar company without even having a career. Kathy knew how to obtain professional success through determination and performance, but all that success did not bring happiness. Instead, it brought more stress with each promotion and less time to spend with her family, particularly her 2 children. In 2014, Kathy began being mentored and coached by an organization I mentioned earlier, the Life in Air organization, which quickly assisted her and guided her to follow her passion in life as a life and a leadership coach. In 2016, Kathy became a certified speaker, coach, and trainer of the John Maxwell team, and things began really moving quickly forward for her. In February of 2016, she retired from the healthcare industry and soon became a life coach with Life in Air. Today, Kathy runs her own successful business as a life and leadership coach, focusing on connection and relationships. But I also know she has a special passion for marriage and for those who are newly going to be married. And so Kathy's less than story is around her divorce. And so I would just like to open it up and just have Kathy start sharing your backstory and your background on your less than story with us, Kathy. And thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Wow, Penny, thanks for that introduction. That was pretty awesome.
You are awesome.
Thank you for having me on the show today. I think there's so many things that happen in our lives that we don't realize what it does and how it impacts our future. And I think my less than story that was a turning point in my life was the betrayal in my marriage. My ex and I had dated since I was 15 years old. So he was all I knew. And we spent years of savings so that we could have our first house and before we got married. And we had all these big plans, right? And he was a workaholic. He worked an awful lot. And eventually we had 2 children. And during that process, I think is where my passion has come from, because I learned that after the betrayal, it took 14 years of marriage when I found out he was having an affair. And that is crushing. And the one thing, you're angry with usually the woman, right? But you're just angry and you don't know where it's all coming from. And then you go through a stage of really feeling unworthy and that you were a failure. You weren't enough as a wife. You weren't enough as a mother. And you just bury yourself in this pain and agony. And so it took 2 years to go through that divorce process. And I struggled a lot because my children were 5 and 10 at the time. And I had a good job, but I wasn't in leadership. And And so I put a lot of my feelings aside and just really worked my way up. You know, I did not have a college degree, so the only way I was going to get there was by working hard. And so I pushed myself through that process, and eventually through probably 20 years of working my way up through leadership, I became a director and spent my last 10 as a director of a company. And so it's really ironic how a person can feel less than and still be successful, right, in a career.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know where it was all coming from, but my internal pain was deep. And I didn't realize how deep it was. I pushed myself because I had to for my kids. I wanted to keep them in a lifestyle that they had before we got divorced. And I didn't know why I felt like it was such a struggle, why life felt like it was a sacrifice, and I was just surviving. And so many different things happened throughout my single momhood, I should say, that brought me to my knees. And one of them was my daughter's suicide attempt. And through that process, she had said that I was never there for them. And I had built all my career about being there for them. And so now I'm feeling like I'm not even a good mother. Like I did everything to be a good mother, and I'm not even that. And so I kind of was crashing. And, you know, I think that so many times all the emotions that we hold bottled up inside us are not discovered until you crash sometimes.
Well, you led to my next question, actually, but I just want to pause and reflect for a minute. And that is, your story touches so many people. You know, I too have been through divorce, and I went through a church program called Divorce Care, and I experienced, not personally, but so many other people, primarily women in that group, who experienced infidelity and that broke up their relationship. And that wasn't obviously the only reason, but it's amazing how we feel alone, and we feel like we're the only one that experienced this. And the more and more I talk to people, the more we realize we have all experienced things that we can connect with. And your story is just so impactful for so many, especially single women and women who've gone through this, that I'm so glad that you're sharing this with me and with everyone that's listening and watching, because they can start relating, and they can start realizing they're not alone, and they can start healing, which is the question that you just brought up, which worked great, which was, how did you discover this for yourself? What was the process that you went through to discover this?
And I think that it's hard to discover it for yourself. It takes somebody around you or somebody willing to say something to you, unless you learn from programs like yours right now, what you're teaching, because we can't always see where everything inside of us is coming from. And so for me, it was my family just seeing me crash. Like when my daughter's situation happened, and I was feeling, I knew I was feeling like a failure. I knew that much. I knew I felt like a failure as a wife, a failure as a mother, but I was still angry at my ex for the betrayal. And so I didn't trust hardly anyone. And when my son had gotten involved in the Life in Air program, and it was a life coaching program, and it helped him get his priorities in order and really see what was important in his life. And he believed that's what I needed. And so they gave me that gift of a membership, and I was scared. I didn't know what I was getting into. But they saved my life, I really believe.
Well, and you mentioned scared. I think that's where a lot of things, especially in the less than world or the less than movement, comes from. It comes from scared. It's come from fear. It comes from experience that we had. A lot of times our perceptions as children, as teenagers, as adults, things that we experience that we bring into our life. And, just not being able to see ourselves in the mirror, or to be able to acknowledge that we need help, or acknowledge that there's something wrong there, and being able to reach out and get help, and the fact that your family was there, and the event around your daughter, the event around your divorce, and your family was there to support you and to give you this great gift of empowerment and personal growth
Yeah.
is a lot of what I'm trying to help others be able to do, and to give them as a gift in their world, is to identify what are the things in their life is less than, what are the things in their life is holding them back, and how can we help them overcome that and empower them and inspire them to be the best person that they could be. Would you say at this point, what are some of the lessons that you have learned, obviously since you identified that and joined Life in Air, what has transpired in your life since that, as far as dealing with that feeling?
So the group was able to help me see the way I was living, almost trying to buy people's love. I had a good job, and so I would buy meals for people. I would buy gifts for my kids. I didn't realize that why I was doing that. I just felt good when I did, but I always felt an emptiness of no one loved me. And so as they started getting me to have a more positive attitude, I started reading books, and I started reading about how we control how we believe we are, right? We control what we receive in and what we put out and our responses. And I realized that when I really started to take a look back at my journey of life, I lived in a life of blame. I blamed my ex for my misery. And because of that, I couldn't get past the real issues that I had within myself. By blaming him, it was easy. I didn't have to own my own life. And so when I got to a point where I realized I was no longer going to have the betrayal have power over me, I started to investigate what was my role in the divorce itself. And what I discovered is the betrayal was only the straw that broke the camel's back, right?
Right.
The marriage had fallen apart long before that, but I couldn't see it because you live each day, day to day, and you have no plan, and it just flows, and you think it's all okay until one day it's not. And so I learned to be intentional and live in awareness. And once I realized that part of it was my fault, I was able to forgive him. And the whole situation, myself too. I had to forgive myself.
Yeah, you make a very good point. I mean, taking responsibility and ownership of the role that you played and being able to identify that is part of the healing process. Being able to look back to be able to move forward is such an important role in that healing as well. And then truly at the end is to forgive yourself. You know, this is part of the journey. We're not perfect. We are human, but to realize that, you know, we did play a role and to be able to move forward with that. So would you say at this point that you've overcome that less than feeling, or is it still part of your journey at this point?
So I think for the most part, I think I've had tremendous healing. I feel much more confident. I feel happy in my life. And I think in order to feel happy, you have to like yourself. I do have days that I'm scared, and those trigger moments come back that say, I don't know if you can do that. I do have moments that I compare myself to others, which is one of our worst things we could do, right? When we compare, we are never going to measure up because we always choose to compare to somebody that's greater than us or appearing in a better position than us, right? And so I still have those kind of moments, but what I have now is different because I know when I'm doing it. I have an intentional awareness about it. And so I can quickly bring myself back to home base, back to where I need to be. And it makes all the difference.
Is there some techniques or some things that you do, like journaling or meditation? Is there anything that has worked for you in being, and I think that is part of the process. Like you said, some of this stuff, it's like peeling, you know, the layers of an onion. Some of it's going to come back and it'll never rear its ugly head again. And then other things, other circumstances and feelings will have an event that will trigger it. And so for you, what have you felt, and what could you share with our listeners and in sharing how you handle when they actually come back and kind of hit you? And I'm sure not only does it come back, but you're able to identify it quicker and then respond quicker. But what are some of the things and tools that you've used, Kathy?
So I think meditation is one of the biggest ones. Louise Hayes has a great meditation about loving yourself, the 10 ways to love yourself. And I listen to that over and over. And I use YouTube videos a lot for positive reinforcement. I read books. John Maxwell has a book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. It's the one that helps you understand that your trials are lessons. And so as you face trials, or you face moments like this, it's stopping yourself and say, what can I learn from this moment? How can I be stronger? How can I be the person I was meant to be? And those have been, I reach out to my group. I use the coaching group. I have accountability people. They pull me back up quickly. They reassure me that I'm okay and that I am enough, and I only need to be enough for who I'm meant to be, right? I don't have to be the superstar that's doing modeling, right? I don't have to be the greatest success in the world. I don't have to be John Maxwell or somebody like him. I just have to be what I'm meant to be, right? And when I start comparing myself only to myself to be better than myself each day, then I can be satisfied, or I can realize that I'm not doing my fair thing to myself. But it doesn't involve anybody else. I don't let people's comments anymore sink in. I deflect them. If somebody is being mean to me or making me feel ugly or something, I realize that that is their own pain. And they are coming from a place that they don't understand either, most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's been an amazing journey. And I want to share these things because the freedom that you can feel once you've gotten through this, it's so freeing. It's just, the weight comes off. You feel amazing. One of the tools that John Maxwell did, and I know that other programs do this as well, is, sometimes those feelings come from years of trauma or experience that has happened in your life. And they recommend that you take every 10 years of your life and look at it and say, where did these emotions come from? And some of the things that I learned on that journey was that I was feeling less than all the way back in grade school, where somebody had wrote in my yearbook that to a girl who's ugly and fat and undeserving, and we went to a Christian school, and they didn't sign it. It's still there. Every once in a while that yearbook comes around now, but now I can look at it and laugh. But it was like, who could say those things? But at the time, they stick with you. They become like a dagger in your heart. Mm-hmm. And when my dad was from the era where kids were, to be seen and not heard. He didn't tell me he loved me. And so you grow up seeing those role models making you feel like not worthy of love. And so less than just played a role. And throughout my marriage, they made fun of my ex loving our dog more than he loved me, giving more attention to the dog than he gave to me. And so you start to believe that. You start to think that what you got is good enough because you don't deserve anything better. And, when you realize that that's not true, it's an incredible feeling.
It is. And I know we've talked about this over many various conversations, and I'm proud to call Kathy a wonderful, wonderful friend, and actually a sister. We've gotten to know each other over the last 2 years, and I have similar, stories. I've shared my story with Kathy about my less than, and it was going back decade by decade and trying to figure out when did I feel the lack of self-confidence, and it went all the way back to when I was 6 years old. And once I realized that and shared the story and released myself from all of that pain and guilt and everything, it was like the walls just came crumbling down. Yeah. And the feeling, if any of you have ever experienced that, of course, where you feel the stress is lifted off of your shoulders, you understand what Kathy and I are talking about. And just being able to release yourself from those less than stories and those perceptions is just freeing beyond comprehension. It's just right. It's hard to even begin to share in words those experiences. And Kathy, all your advice and story that you just shared is just really amazing. I mean, I feel the same way. I was was raised in the same type of household. My parents weren't very loving, affectionately, or as far as positive affirmations. Kids were to be seen and not heard. And so I'm sure you and I are not the only two people in the world that had this experience. When other people are going to be watching and listening to this show, they'll be able to relate. And then, you know, how do we help them, and where do we go from here? Any advice and kind of concluding and closing out this show today that you would like to leave our audience with?
I think the most important thing is that it's never too late. It's never too late to come out of those feelings, and to understand that it becomes a cycle in your family line if you don't pull yourself out of those feelings, because your beliefs become your children's beliefs, and it just becomes a cycle, and you don't even realize you're doing it. You don't realize the negative things you may say about yourself will make them say negative things about themselves. And it is the most harmful thing that we can do. And so the more that we can identify why it happened and accept that journey of healing from it, because sometimes it's painful to heal from it, but to go through that is the best thing you can do for everybody around you. Because now, and Penny, I see this in you too, and people say it about me, there's a new light around us. Like, people see the light shining, and so many people live in the darkness because they don't know how to pull up. And there are so many areas where you can get coaching or programs or YouTube videos or books that can help you on that journey. You don't have to go it alone.
Absolutely. And we are both part of a coaching group as well. Our coaches help us. The members of the group help us. We have accountability, just like an athlete or an executive or anyone else. We can't do anything alone. And I don't believe we were put on this earth to be alone and to live alone. And so I appreciate all of your wisdom and your sharing your story with us today. For those of you who are interested in talking with Kathy more or finding out about her life coaching, we will have more information on our website so you can connect with Kathy. Kathy, if you would like to share anything about your coaching business to our audience, I'd love to have you share a little bit about that at this time before we close.
Yeah, thank you, Penny, for that. I really focus a lot on couples and individuals and couples. So I will take an individual on that journey to help find their way and seek their happiness and what they're trying to do with their life. Help them see what they can't see. And it's incredible to watch those lights come on. I have worked with couples over and over again and help them learn how each other's wired, so that you can understand why you defend each other when the marriage goes into the second year. Oftentimes that first year is your happy year, right? But as you move down the road, some of the things you admired about them become your annoyances, because you simply don't understand how they're wired and what they need and how to stay united and collaborating. And I have helped many couples just through procedures and principles. It's not about me. It's true techniques that can help people make those changes. And it makes their whole family change, because when you have a happy couple in a household, the family grows up experiencing that, and they will search that out in their future too. So that is one of my greatest passions. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy, again, for your time. And I know several couples that you have helped and have just said wonderful things and have great testimonials on your website and your Facebook page. So I look forward to hopefully maybe interviewing you again, having some of our viewers be able to seek you out and be able to have wonderful personal development and great marriages and great family life. And I just thank you so much for being on our show today.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to close with letting everyone know that part of what I'm doing with the Less Than series is helping people empower themselves with personal and professional development. We always think that it's the professional side and the money that's going to fix it. And what we really find out is it's actually the personal growth that helps us change our inside to be able to change our outside. And so again, I just thank Kathy for her time today, and we'll be signing off. Thanks.
Sounds great.
Day, everyone.
Thanks, Penny.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, including specific ways to empower yourself, go to thepennyzshow.com.